In the previous part 1 of this series, we identified Paul Ryan and Pete Sessions as possible replacements for Boehner. Paul Ryan of Wisconsin will ascend to the speakership, but I'm going to focus on the following 2 potential candidates for speaker, both of whom are members of the House Committee on the Judiciary. Jason Chaffetz, current chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and his immediate presser at the Oversight Committee, Darrell Issa of California. Both Issa and Chaffetz voted to pass the Obama Trade Partnership Authority out of the House. You want an abysmal record that only has compromised America's borders? Look no further than Issa. Now, in this LA Times report, the reporter states that Representative Darrell Issa, Republican from Vista, was stopped by a Border Patrol agent in December of 2001 for speeding on Interstate 5, the agency confirmed Friday. The incident involved Issa was first reported in the North County Times, a newspaper in northern San Diego County. The newspaper said it had received a copy of a Border Patrol memo stating that Issa was stopped December 1st for driving 90 miles per hour near San Clemente, where the speed limit is 65 miles per hour. The newspaper said the memo indicated that Issa argued with the agent and told him that he did not have the authority to stop him for speeding. Now, Dale Neugebauer, the first-term congressman's chief of staff, said someone was attempting to embarrass Issa because of legislation he is sponsoring that would make it easier to fire employees of the Immigration and Naturalization Service, which includes the Border Patrol. At this point, DHS hadn't fully become a reality. Issa also wanted a study done to determine if the San Clemente checkpoint should be closed. Obviously, there is a very upset employee who leaked this memo as an act of retaliation. Now, on top of that, there is the interior enforcement issue and Issa's role in leading his 2004 constituency to believe that DHS would hear what local residents had to say about the Border Patrol's enforcement efforts at a local town hall meeting attended by Asa Hutchinson, a former congressional colleague of Issa's, who was an undersecretary at DHS when all interior enforcement efforts were terminated by DHS at the behest of then Congressman Joe Baca. And Baca, somebody who I know very well, going back to my run for the California State Assembly. Now, in this report, Issa hosted this town hall meeting in Temecula, and according to the reporter, angry shouts from the crowd often drowned out comments by Asa Hutchinson, Undersecretary of the Department of Homeland Security for Border and Transportation Security, as he tried to answer questions yesterday about what is being done to stop illegal immigration. The thing about the illegal population in the U.S., most of them work hard, they love their family, Hutchinson said, to boos and jeers that quickly turned to cheers when he ended with, but they have no legal status in the U.S. Now, according to the story and the reporter, people came from San Diego, Los Angeles, Riverside, Orange County, and Temecula to ask for the return of roving Border Patrol agents who check for illegal aliens. Tensions were high outside as both sides clashed, but that's common. Inside, the audience wanted one question answered. Are you going to continue the sweeps, and if so, when? Well, that's because in June, a 12-member mobile patrol group from the Temecula station, which operated in San Diego, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties, apprehended more than 400 illegal aliens in less than a month. Most were eventually deported. Well, after fielding complaints from members of Congress, officials at DHS concluded that the patrols had not received the required approval. And leading that charge was then Congressman Workin' Joe Baca, working for Mexico, is how many of us saw it. Bring back the sweeps, audience members shouted at the forum. Hutchinson said the roving Border Patrol checks may resume at any time, but he did not provide specifics. Well, they never did resume. Hutchinson and Congressman Issa, who helped organize the meeting and hosted it, he said that roving Border Patrol checks are not indiscriminate sweeps. You don't want people to be arrested simply because they look Hispanic, Issa said. Not on my constitution, not on Issa's constitution. Now, anybody who also read my report on DHS and Congress in collusion for amnesty also knows the Issa and Chaffetz role where DH whistleblowers accompanied me up to the Hill, met with ISA staff, met with a number of congressmen and or their top staffers. Now, what they tried to accomplish was to investigate documented internal corruption at Homeland Security. However, then Chairman Issa required that congressmen turn over all documents to Subcommittee Chairman Chaffetz, who has since taken over the whole committee, and nothing ever came from that. There were no hearings, there was no investigation. Essentially, everything was nixed and killed. So, clearly, regardless of how much documentation of corruption that takes place at Homeland Security, Issa won't do anything about it. Now, unlike Chaffetz, who has a much less accomplished record where the destruction of immigration enforcement is concerned, only due to the fact he has served less time in D.C., Issa's record is vast and goes beyond these two issues, as my friend Debbie Schlussel, the civilian expert on ICE, has reported on her blog for years. For example, Issa, who is of Lebanese descent, is well covered by the media for his support of the Assad regime of Syria long before there was an ISIS or ISIL, as well as one who regularly gushed over the late Yasser Arafat. Now, he also defended Neel Kashkari during his campaign for governor of California in 2014, though, as Kashkari, the former Bush 43 Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, conducted the welcoming of the U.S. Treasury Department seminar held on November 6, 2008 at Harvard University, Islamic Finance 101, which clearly focused on Sharia finance, not academics. But on top of that, then there is the statement as reported by the New York Daily News, where Issa stated, and this has to do with 9/11, the federal government had already done enough to help New York cope with a fire that simply was an aircraft hitting the World Trade Center. And of course, that drew a lot of fire from all over the place, from firefighters to family members whose loved ones died when the towers were hit. So, I mean, it was just unconscionable for Issa to make that type of statement. As if that's not enough, look at the farcical hearings held by Issa on Benghazi and how no accountability ever came from Issa's hearings at all. Of course, how could there be when he is known to be a supporter of Hezbollah? I mean, here's a quote right off of Debbie Schlussel's website. In many interviews with Arabic media, in a press release his own office sent out, and even in his own comments in the Congressional Record, Issa repeatedly praised the Islamic terrorist group that murdered U.S. diplomats and said Hezbollah was engaged in legitimate resistance. Can we all take a look at the group who murdered so many at the American Embassy and Marine Barracks in 1983 in Beirut? It's the same terrorist outfit that Issa has long embraced and praised, and officially praised as a member of Congress. And yet we, the American people, expected oversight and fact-finding instead of the grandstanding we witnessed by the Issa Oversight Committee? Now keep in mind that though he was planning on running for California governor during the recall of then California Governor Gray Davis, until even the GOP establishment had to pull him out, knowing his record was so bad that instead Arnold Schwarzenegger became the governor. And as I saw personally, he was a total establishment guy, pro-driver's licenses for illegal aliens, regardless of the phony Save Our License campaign Issa and Arnold backed, that was racked with questionable issues, as reported by then Inland Valley Daily Bulletin reporter Sarah Carter. So trust me, Issa must not only never become speaker or a chairman again, but eventually should be primaried.